The ROE for indirect assets, artillery mortars, was always really clear. They were very restrictive in my experience. But for automatic weapons or rifles, they were never very clear, and that's where I think that image is very powerful. One thing that people don't always understand, and I can only speak to this because, being a forward observer, when we were in sitting position, or if we visited a forward operating base that had artillery or mortars that had been in a sitting position for more than several weeks, you have to register the guns to the weather conditions, to all different things. So every now and then, forward observers were tasked to sit on an OP and watch rounds being fired. You could call it training because we definitely utilized it to train up some of our younger Joes. And essentially what we're doing is firing rounds into Iraq while we were bored. I didn't understand until recently that white phosphorus is not supposed to be fired. It's not supposed to be used against civilian targets or civilian, et cetera. That's what we use as our training rounds in what were hasty impact areas in Iraq. So I think it's important to realize that it's not just the operations themselves, but it's also what we did for training still had a significant impact on the surrounding community. Jason Lemieux also mentioned the very permissive ROE. I experienced the same thing in Najaf in 2004 I want to say July. Rolling into the city, Muqtada al-Sadr was our enemy at that time. We were told anybody in black clothing with a green headband is fair game to shoot. I never experienced it, but it was made very clear that this is the uniform of the enemy, and you should feel free to take them out whenever necessary. And that was the closest I think we got to conventional warfare, which is what I trained on for 5 years before I went to Iraq. Another time in Samara in October of 2004, I was a part of Operation Baton Rouge. My platoon was attached to, I believe, 126 armor. We were the first light infantry to enter the city of Samara from the west. It was a train-up for Fallujah. We were told it was a litmus test to see what procedures we would need to incorporate into the attack on Fallujah in November. On the second day, on the roof of a school, we had set up a security position. We'd set up a security position, and one of the snipers, backtrack a little bit. Going into Samara, we were told that all of the civilians had been told that we were coming, that we had a very permissive ROE because they were told that they were supposed to stay in their house or evacuate the city. The following day, one of the snipers saw a man crossing the street with a bag in his hand and shot him within the ROE, but I don't think that would, for me, satisfy my ethical kind of restrictions. And another real quick one, and after I got back from Iraq, hopefully to anyway, when I clarify, there we go, thank you. What has also been said, at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, my battalion commander, after 3 weeks in the box at Fort Irwin, sat my company down for a pep talk, and he made it explicitly clear that if there was a problem and the wrong person went down, we would plant weapons to ensure that you guys are protected. Several months later, on their second deployment, would have been my second deployment, 2 members of my old unit were brought up on Article 32 charges for premeditated murder, and he was relieved. And I'm curious why he was relieved when he obviously set the atmosphere that allowed incidences like that to occur. Next slide, please, and I'll try and make this as brief as possible. In the lines of unnecessary loss of life, I'm afraid you might not be able to see it very well. The turning point for the war for me came on November 16th of 2004 in Fallujah. There's an American convoy that I was on a convoy on a President's patrol, actually a Rocket Man patrol, where we were looking for mortarmen. We got a call to assist another unit that had an accident on a convoy. Vehicle had overturned over a reservoir, which you might be able to see, and was resting over part water and part land. I was asked to get in the water and look for bodies. I did that about an hour into it. after I had gotten out of the water, I was circling the vehicle looking for things to do when I saw a set of legs sticking out from what used to be the door to the Humvee. And at first glance, I thought it was a rescuer talking to another personnel pinned by the vehicle who we had given morphine to. I checked his leg. I tapped him on the leg. I didn't get a response. I indicated to one of the medics I think it was a casualty and that we needed to give him attention. His response was, he's too far gone. We need to focus on the people who have a chance. So for an hour and a half, I kind of fretted about what to do with this guy. And to explain, combat triage is actually the opposite from triage in a hospital where you rush the most immediate to the operating room. In combat, if someone doesn't have a chance, you make it as comfortable for them as possible to die. Finally, a crane came, lifted the vehicle, got the guy out that was pinned by his leg who had morphine already injected in him, and the Special Forces medics got the other guy up, and he had a pulse. He was still alive. And I heard on the radio going back to Kirkuk that he had died before he could reach the clinic. For some reason, that struck me pretty hard. For 9 nights, I didn't sleep. I realized that there's a great possibility that he died, hearing everybody around him and knowing that nobody was coming to his aid. In the tents at night, in the pitch dark, I couldn't stop thinking about how it felt being trapped under a Humvee and possibly not being able to catch a breath and cry for help. And then I really got disturbed when I realized, despite all the Iraqi bodies I had seen throughout Iraq, it was an American soldier that made me disturbed. And so for several months after that, and still today, I wrestle with, what does that mean? That I saw all these Iraqis dead, or whatever nationals they were, but it took an American soldier, someone of my own race and creed and skin color, to wake me up out of this kind of slumber. And to illuminate it maybe a little bit, please forgive me for this necessarily harsh image, but imagine you wake up in the morning and in your purse or your wallet you find a membership card, if they have them, from the KKK, and your name is on it. And you realize for years of your life, you were taught to think something about a certain people, and what that must feel like, and what that would take to overcome that in your future. And I want to close with real quickly why I do this. Martin Luther King said of the war in Vietnam, and I would repeat in the War of Terror, I oppose this war because I love America. I speak out against this war not in anger, but with a great sorrow in my heart. I speak out against this war because I'm disappointed with America. There can be no great disappointment where there is no great love. I'm disappointed with our failure to deal positively and forthrightly to those evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism. We are presently moving down a dead-end road that will lead to national disaster, and I don't want a national disaster. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much.